Hey, what's up? I'm Mike Squires. This is Couch's Podcast, episode number 198. My guest, Nils Goldschmidt of Velvet Chains, a rock band from Las Vegas, Nevada. They recently put out a record called Icarus. It's their first record. I had a great time talking with Nils. He's got a very interesting story, not entirely different from a couple of folks who have been on the show. Um, but I was, not that rockers are dummies, because they're not, but a lot of their energy and a lot of their brain powers are going towards different things, And Nils displays assertiveness and some creativity and a lot of elbow grease and hard work, and it's paid off for this guy. And he's able to focus on forming this band and putting this record together now. And I hope that you enjoy to hear him explain, what he's up to, how he got going, um, and where he wants to head. I was lucky enough to be invited to play on Velvet Chains record. Jeff Rouse, the bass player from Duff McKagan's Loaded, one of my best friends and bandmates. He and I both played on a track called Pass the Disease. I ripped a solo. I was playing at the absolute limits of my abilities. Um, Not that I wouldn't have done that anyway, but I knew that Richard Fortus played a solo on a song on the album, and then in the sequence of the album, it's like fucking right before our song. So I'm glad that I really, 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 really focused, because nobody wants to follow Richard. That guy's a monster. Um. Anyway, check out Icarus. Also, if you are in the Las Vegas area, Velvet Chains is playing Saturday, December 18th at the Tuscany Suites and Casino. By the time this episode airs, they will have already hit the finals for a Battle of the Bands in Vegas, so I wish them luck. Um, and I don't know. Hopefully, we have some good news to share about that afterwards. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did, because I really, really loved it. If you're enjoying Couch Riffs, you know what? Great. I want you to. Um, Thank you for supporting on Patreon. Patreon.com/couchriffs. There are a bunch of tiers there. Everyone gets access to things early. The videos. Certain tiers get the songs. You can download the songs. That's the only place you can get them. I don't put them online anywhere else. Some tiers, get hats and shirts and my solo record. And there's going to be a lot more stuff to come, a lot more releases from Couch Riffs, the label, which I'm really excited about. So that's fucking cool. I think that I might start having guests put together a playlist, and I'll share that every week. And that'll be like the Couch Riffs guest of the week playlist. Maybe I'll hit up Nils, and this one will be the first one. Yeah. So I'll put a link to that in the bio here, or in the episode. And then also just follow the links in my social media, the link tree or whatever the hell that thing's called. Let's see what else. Hey, thank you. Thank you for all the stuff. Thank you for watching, listening, sharing, commenting, leaving positive reviews or negative reviews. What the fuck do I care? It's a free world. Say whatever you want. But this is awesome. Um, is it awesome? I think it's awesome. Uh, you know, your support means a lot to me. And you could do anything with that money, and that you would, support Couchris means a ton to me. So I know that, I left that transparent so that people can see how much Couch Riffs is bringing in a month on Patreon. but I assure you, nothing goes into my pocket still. Like, I think it will be a while before that happens, and I just will keep working hard, and I hope that you will choose to continue supporting, because every one of these, I just switched services, so I think I'm going to start doing this live broadcast thing for Patreon supporters, so that they can interact with the podcast as it's happening. So that would be pretty cool. But that costs money also. So these are all things that I'm just choosing to do. Maybe they fly, maybe they don't fly. I don't know, but I hope they fly. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you to Variety Coffee Roasters in Brooklyn, New York. I drink Variety every single morning. That's a fact. I use it at work for my work. And their website, Variety Coffee Roasters, is the only place where you can get a couch roast coffee mug. All right. So they're $10. Go over there. It's in their merch drop down section. If that's all you want, you just want to get a mug, it's $10. But if you add it to your cart, buy 2 bags of coffee, and then use the code CouchRiffs, all one word, at checkout, it's free. Just like that. While you're there, be sure to check out their subscription service. You can get coffee sent to you weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly, and uh, and they'll ask you a series of questions, which will assist you in getting coffee that you're gonna love. Help you choose the right coffees, and that's that. So thank you, Variety Coffee. We fucking love you. Thank you to River City Guitars in Spokane, Washington. It's one of the only places that you can get one of these sweet Marvin CN90 guitars. That's a hot rig. Co-designed by myself and Keith over at Marvin Guitars. Every day is a buying day at River City Guitars. Sales.rivercityguitars. If you've got a vintage, boutique, cool something or other, doesn't have to be a guitar. Could be a bass, an amp, effects, drum kit, some cool musical thing. They're interested. Tell them I sent you, include a photograph, and they're going to take good care of you. I would not bullshit you. Thank you, River City Guitars. Now, we're going to get into it. This is a good one, man. Nils is way more well spoken than I am, but that's not hard. Don't forget the golden rule: treat people the way you want to be treated, and don't be an asshole.
Buddy.
Hey. There we
Yeah,
go.
there you are. Oh, look, you
How
got a
are you?
nice little setup there. You got the nice mic and the whole bit.
I got my whole recording studio that we built recently over here. So I'm in the control room right now. Feel quite special using it for the first time.
You built a little recording studio at your house?
Yeah, I went all out. Have a control room, have the recording room, this big ass window in front of me, and it's just pretty funky in there too. It's all crazy colors and like weird patterns, and it's and in here I got a bunch of skulls in the wall and stuff. So
Shit.
yeah.
Well, I know where I'm going to make my next record.
How you know it, dude? I
How are
know
you?
a guy.
Your day?
What's that?
How's your day? How's it going?
Yeah, man, doing well. Thanks. You hear me well? Everything's set up good. Yeah.
I can hear you great.
I don't usually do the whole microphone like next to me. I usually use the computer's mic, but you're special, man. So I went all out.
It's been said about me before, but probably not in the way that you're intending me to hear it.
Well, that's a good thing, I suppose.
Ah, yeah. Uh, so dude, we have so much to talk about.
Yeah, no, I'm excited, man. I've been thinking what kind of questions you're gonna have, and I've been quite curious about it. But it'll be a blast.
We're gonna have a very natural conversation. I mean, we're recording now,
Yeah, I know.
so don't say anything stupid.
This is not who I really am.
And me neither. This is a facade. This is all a facade. This beard is even fake. It's a glue on.
That looks very natural, man. I
Well,
like
look,
it.
I shave my dog. He's
Uh-huh.
actually a long hair dog, and then I just put his gray beard on me.
Works.
True.
Very
We
good.
look we look related, right?
Yeah, about the same. At least the jawline is similar.
The jawline and the eyes and the beard.
Yep, yep.
Yeah. You hear that, Mr. Big? Um, so dude,
Where do we start?
well, shit, we're just gonna start talking. But I think first of all, I want to say I want people, well, I want to talk about your experience being here. If someone met you, they'd be like, "Oh yeah, dude from Vegas, but you're from Chile." And I love Chile. And I had one of the most fun, greatest days of my life with Jeff Rouse, who he and I were both on one of your songs on the new art record. Um, like riding motorcycles from Santiago down to the coast,
Yeah.
and did a little triangle and back up. It was just this beautiful day. I've always had a great time there, and always thought, man, it's so chill here. I will tell you some other weird shit though. Um, and so I'm curious like how you ended up in Vegas. And let's start there.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I love that story about you riding motorcycles with Jeff in Chile. I don't know if I heard it in your podcast or an Appetite for Distortion or one of those, but I remember that story, and that was great. I kind of warmed my heart a little bit. I'm like, hey, they like
I
Chile.
still have this little handwritten map that someone drew me on the back of a receipt at a gas station.
Oh wow.
I saved it just because it was like this cool little memento for that day.
How long ago was that? I mean, didn't we have GPS down there by then, or how long ago
It
was
was
that?
10 years ago.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I didn't have a phone. GPS wasn't really there,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
also phone plans that were reasonable weren't quite there. Now it's like, whatever you throw down $20 and you
Yeah.
can go anywhere in the world and it's fine.
Back in the day, you would turn that data plan on. You come back 2 days later, it's like
1200
$300.
bucks. Yeah.
Yeah, $1,200, man.
Fuck.
Oh, brutal.
But yeah.
Okay.
Uh
I
so
lost you there.
oh yeah, it's a common theme.
No, let me tell you about how I ended up in Vegas. I born and raised in Chile, in Santiago, until I was about 18 or 19. I went to an American high school down there. So all my classes were in English except for like Spanish
Right.
and like history, of Chile or something, right? But it was a trip because my kinder, elementary, the whole up until high school, I went to this place, and Chileans were like 10-15% of the people in at school. Most of them were Americans, Asians, Europeans. Like you had everything, and a lot of diplomat kids, and kids from like multinational companies, and that would go down there, and the whole family would come and they'd go there. So I grew up like studying U.S. history, and I think even the U.S. embassy is part of the board of the school and everything. So in that
You
school,
probably have a better education in US history than most American
you know,
kids. The kids that took public school in America.
well, but to get somebody that's a U.S. teacher to want to go down there, also, you're probably not getting the look. I'm not banging on my teachers; they were great, but I remember having a teacher that used to be a cab driver in the U.S. and then he went to become a math teacher in Chile. So again, not banging on the dude. The dude was
Right.
brilliant, but it was interesting, man. It was quite the experience, but that school also, and the reason I'm going into detail is ended up being the reason why I ended up here, is that school was so different in the sense that they didn't even follow like Chilean regulations. Like they followed the most basic rules they had to keep their license, but they didn't care about anything else that happened in the country, right? A little elitist to a certain extent, but it was cool to be like in a different world. And that's also part of how I got to learning about grunge and all that. Like it all ties in. But after going to school there where we wouldn't wear a uniform, and you know, in other schools all over the country, everybody would wear uniforms and so on.
Right.
It'd be I graduated from that school, and I go do a semester of college, you know, business school in Chile, in quite a conservative university, a pretty good one. And I'm like, man, what do you mean I can't put my feet on top of the table while I'm, you know, learning? Like, and there's a little bit of common sense there, but you know, coming from this other alternate reality, it was like I felt so out of place, man. I'm Chilean born and raised, right? I've been to the US a few times on vacation, whatever. I've been to a few countries, but I felt a little bit like a fish out of the water. So after failing miserably, I'm not just going to put it on that. I'm going to say that I also failed miserably my first semester. Right before they are about to expel me from university over there, I said, you know what? I think I want to switch my major, and I want to go study potentially in the US. And that's how I ended up in the US. But I
UNLV?
conveniently say, what's that?
You go to UNLV?
No, I went to near where you are, man. I went to SUNY Plattsburgh for a couple of
What?
years, dude. Yeah, up your alley, man. Yeah.
Whoa.
That's it used so I got there, typical story of my life, man. I got there right after they stopped being like the number one party school in the state or in America. They used to do this. I
You were
don't know
so
what.
disappointed.
I'm quiet, man. When I like, it was a great fun school, man. But when I learned about how it used to be before, I'm like, wait, my American college experience is quite lacking. I'm not happy with this, right? But they used to have on St. Patty's Day, or I don't know what the holiday was, but they'd all streak around the city, and everybody would go to Plattsburgh because everybody would run naked around college, and then they put like spring break or something right on top of it, and that was the end of that. But yeah, man, Plattsburgh.
Did you ever try to rekindle that tradition?
You know, I may have. There's some nights that I don't quite remember what went down, but that I may have. Actually, there's a lot of things that I may have done that I do remember that I'm not proud of, but it was a great time.
That's crazy. You were right up here. What year was that?
That must have been 2000 and 2001. That's when I first came to the US. Yeah.
That was your first time to the US was going to university.
No, sorry. So that's when I came to live here, right? And or at the time I was just coming here for school, and I was getting, you know, my degree and heading back. But no, I had been in the US when I was a kid. I lived in Canada for 3 years when I was like 3 years old. It was weird times down in Chile with Pinochet, and it was very, very tough politically, and a lot of, I don't know what the word of compared to today, but terrorism from the left and from the right. And you know, at some point Canada was offering visas to Chileans that wanted to, you know, have a better life or something. And so my dad's like, hey man, let's go, me, my sister, and my mom, let's go try luck in Canada and see what we can do. So I lived there in Canada, like my first like pre-kinder and kinder one or whatever. I did that over there in Canada. So while Spanish is definitely my native language, I kind of picked up English somewhat quick living in Toronto. So I do have a little bit of Canadian culture experiences, love in there.
Yeah.
Something.
Toronto's actually not far from here either.
Yeah, isn't that more like, well, isn't that right? Toronto's East Coast at the end of the day. Kind of.
Yeah, it's not far from here at all. I could drive there in a day. Easy.
Yeah. But when I was in Plattsburgh, we'd also go to Montreal because it was so close. So we'd go gambling at the casino and partying, and you could drink when you were 18. Not that we couldn't drink in Plattsburgh at 18, also 19. There's always a way. When there's the will, there's the way, right?
Montreal is great, right?
Yeah, it's such a beautiful place.
I
Such a
love it.
beautiful place. I love Montreal. Also, some people were super nice. Some people were not that nice, but I've heard about it, and it's part of the culture, I suppose. But Montreal as a place to go and have fun, fantastic.
Do you speak any French?
Zero, nothing. I tried learning Russian at some point, and I tried learning Chinese many years ago, but none of those went anywhere. So yeah,
Let me ask you these. I'm going to ask you three questions.
yeah.
I think three, maybe two. Um, was your were either your parents business people, or was that your inspiration to pursue a business degree? And did you go to learn Chinese and Russian because of business or just because?
No, that's a good question. So my dad has always been an entrepreneur. Started from scratch. He used to drive a cab and driving trucks, blah blah blah, and kind of built himself up from there. His parents were German immigrants,
Mm.
and so he kind of had the growing up as the first generation Chilean experience, and starting from scratch with his parents, starting from nothing, blah blah blah. And that I kind of always grew with my dad. He made I started working when I was like 9 years old, and doing meager stuff, but going out there and kind of working. So I kind of had a little bit of that work ethic. Perhaps I hated it. Don't get me wrong. I fucking hated it, man. And sorry
Sure.
if I can't cuss, let me know.
Oh no,
But
grown up show.
good. So yeah, no, I always kind of knew that at some point in my life, my career, it was going to be very much business driven, because that was kind of like the only thing I knew. And and yeah, it just seemed natural to me to eventually head that way. Chinese was because there was so many Asian in my middle school at this point, when I think I tried to learn it. So many Chinese kids there, and I was like, man, China's the future. Like, we better learn the language. So I tried, but yeah, I must have done 4 lessons, and I'm like, okay, no, this isn't working out. And Russian is actually because my wife, she's from Moldova, but she's Russian ethnically, so she speaks at home, or she grew up speaking Russian and like
Where the
five
fuck
other
is
other
Moldova?
languages.
Where's
Yeah,
Moldova?
it's a tiny country between Ukraine and Romania. At some point, they were the Soviet Union. At some point, they were part of Romania. It's ethnically Romanian, the majority. She was from the Russians that came in with the Soviet Union. I've been there, man. It's a crazy place. It's some of the most beautiful people there. Women specifically, some of the most beautiful women I've ever seen. I ended up marrying one. But the country itself, it's like people are super depressed, and there's really it's the poverty is quite yeah, intense over there. There's a lot of it, but beautiful place, amazing wine, and so on. But I tried to learn Russian when I lived in LA from 2010 to 2012. I lived in LA, and I started taking Russian lessons there because her parents didn't speak a word of English, and I don't speak a word of Russian or Romanian. So I was like, yeah, let me try to communicate with my parents-in-law. And look, it didn't work out. I took probably like a semester of classes. I can read the Cyrillic alphabet, but I have no idea what I'm saying. I just know how to pronounce it. I've lost it a little bit by now, but man, if I go there, you give me something to read, people are gonna be like, oh, this dude speaks Russian, but I have not a clue. I don't know one word.
You could
But
give a speech if it was written down.
100%, man.
That's
And I'll
great.
do the gestures, and I'll do it all. But you know what? It ended up being for the better, in my opinion, because every time I say something stupid to my parents-in-law, my wife will correct it and say, oh, this is what he's saying, and translate it in a nice way, because I'm not very smart in those things. So it worked out. And they like me because they probably have no idea what I'm telling them. So yeah.
Right. That would work out great for me too.
Language barriers are good sometimes, man.
Sometimes. Yeah, sometimes. uh so you finished your degree in at SUNY?
Yeah, no. So after 2 years at SUNY, I said, okay, this is a big party town. And I was going for hotel school. And I'm like, I got to get serious now. So I moved to Las Vegas, right? The place to be serious, right?
About being a hotel. You were doing the hotel management?
Yeah, that's correct. I was doing hotel management. But I also could have gone to Cornell, you know, like that's like the place for like hotel business. But no, I'm like, Vegas sounds like a lot of fun, so let's do Vegas. So went from party school to party city, and just I got here, finished my degree here. Eventually, on fast forward a few years, I got a master's degree also in MBA, and that was also quite fun. But yeah, after I did that, but I've like in my hotel career for a few years, maybe about 7 or 8 years, I did everything from making beds to I remember cleaning vomit from an elevator one time, night auditor, and then I worked my way up. I was the analyst for marketing and sales. Eventually, I was like the revenue manager, or analytics manager at the Mirage, and I was helping to set the room rates and all sorts of things. So I kind of did that for a minute, and it was a blast, man. It was great.
But you had to start by making beds and cleaning vomit in the uh, elevator. That's
Yeah, but it was fun too. Like even like I was the front desk guy at Caesar's Palace for a minute.
sure.
But like look, I don't want to do that at my age today, right? And I
Right.
get it why people that do that are probably not as happy as they could be in other roles. But man, I was in college, and I was like the only straight dude at the front desk back then, and I was like 21, 22 or whatever. And I'm like, man, I'm getting all the girls, you know? And it's not that I'm no Brad Pitt, man, but like there's nothing else. So in scarcity, you know, I seemed like a great option. So I was having a blast. Really, really enjoyed it. You know, it was part of earning my chops too. So I did enjoy that quite a bit.
Yeah. Were you playing music all through this, or was it something that came later after you were not focused on studies?
Yeah, so my music life started at about 5 years old because I played violin for about 8 years. And
Do you still
it
have one?
was I don't, and I'll tell you why. I hated it with a passion, man. I've always been musical. I've always been all about music. For me, the most important thing in my life has always been music. But my wife heard that, she'd be pissed. Obviously, family and kid and all that. But yeah, you get the
Sure.
point. Um, but the whole violin thing was kind of forced on me, whereas okay, this is going to help him be a smarter adult when he grows up, and Beethoven and this and that. So I started learning violin with the Suzuki method, and I got pretty good at it. And we were doing orchestra arrangements at the National Theater. Like we were like a thing with and it wasn't like I chose my bandmates, whatever. It was more like organized by the school, and they would put you in a group and so on. And it's funny because a couple of the people that I played, one of them played viola, the other cello, violin, piano, blah blah blah. A couple of them have become quite successful musicians, like mainstream musicians in Chile. They stayed there,
Yeah.
and I was part of that group of like prodigies, apparently. But I'm sure they were way better than I ever was. But it was it was good. It helped me, get closer to music and become a musician from age 5. But it wasn't something I enjoyed because as I got older, I'm like, okay, so the cool kids are not the ones that are playing the violin. The cool kids are playing guitar.
Right.
So, and then Saturdays we would have practice in the morning. And then by 13, 14, I'm already hanging out at night with my friends. And wait, what do you mean I got to get up early to go play Vivaldi or Tchaikovsky or whatever? When I'm like, no, I want to listen to some rock and roll and like hang out. So around 15, 16, I just said, I've had it. I've had enough of this. I don't want to do it anymore. I'm not getting any attention from chicks. That's one of our main drivers when you're a teenager,
Yeah,
right?
sure. You want to be able to meet
Yeah.
people you're attracted to. Sure.
And look, and
You want to
granted,
you want to have peacock feathers of some sort.
100%. And I'm like, I was like pissed. Like I held a grudge back then, and I'm like, why didn't my mom like teach me how to put me on guitar lessons? And back home, you didn't need to know how to solo. You didn't need to know how to do anything. You just needed 3 chords and what do you call it? A little fire. What do you call it when you sit around a fire, right? Whatever that's called.
Yeah, a little acoustic guitar, like campfire
Yeah,
songs. Yeah.
that's it. Forget electric guitar, man. Just an acoustic guitar, a little fire burning, and a few friends, and you're a rock star back there, right? Back when what was that, mid-90s or something?
When you're a teenager, especially,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's all you needed. So anyway, but I moved on from that, and then there was a long time in my life where I was just an avid music fan, and then eventually in Vegas I got involved again with music, and but just for fun and playing around. But I didn't want to do violin, and I grabbed the guitar at one point, and it felt so alien to me. It felt like, wait, how many fingers at the same time and how many strings I got to strum together? And
Well, it's
it
even
just,
tuned differently than the violin, so
right.
it is completely alien.
Yeah. And I just, I took lessons, and I could play some really basic stuff, and a couple solos here and there of famous, well-known songs, but slow. And eventually one day, out of the blue, I just grabbed the bass, and I had no intention of, I'm like, I'm gonna keep sticking to guitar. And I just grabbed the bass, and I said, I'm gonna just try this bass thing that everybody pokes fun at, not the super great guitar player. He went for bass, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Almost like saying, this is not for me. I'm just gonna grab it. And I grabbed the bass, and it felt so natural, man. I felt like I was home. I'm like, all right, you can play a ton of million things in bass, but okay, one finger at a time, some basic stuff, one string at a time. This is kind of fun. And I just grabbed it again and again and again. And I just picked it up so quickly because it was pretty much like having a violin. Instead of having it up here, had it down here. So
Right.
fell in love with it, man. Fell in love, and have been doing that ever since.
When was it?
This was early 30s. So
wait,
I had a good 14 years or something where I just took a hiatus from music. Yeah.
and you were just focused on your professional life at that point.
100%. So after I did my master's, I tried to start a couple businesses, doing some funky stuff. One of them it was in the middle of the crisis around 2006, 2008. And I'm like, I'm going to teach kids how to about financial literacy, right? And because that seemed to be something that was lacking. I read somewhere that some bank was giving the account holders kids lessons in financial literacy to avoid the pitfalls of what have us now at a crisis, the mortgage crisis, blah, blah, blah. Granted, I don't know anything about finance, man. So finance, the only reason I passed finance is because I had good friends in class that would support me. Let's leave it at that. I'm not proud, but I believe in outsourcing quite a bit, and I've outsourced a lot of work from school. Anyway, let's move on. But take away my degree or something. But I started this thing where, again, I honestly didn't know anything about finance, and I'm not the most finance illiterate literate person to this date. And I just said, look, I'm surrounded by all these MBAs who are all super smart, way smarter than me. So I'm just going to ask them if they want to teach a course in financial literacy. And there's a dude that did law. So I'm like, let's teach about contracts for credit cards, I guess. Let's teach about saving money, blah, blah, blah. And I'd end up grabbing these kids from school, and I'd pay them like $20, $30 for like 1 hour. And I just amassed a bunch of people that would come to these seminars, and I started charging for them and so on. And I did that like 3 or 4 times, and it was starting to pick up steam, man. And it was fun. I wouldn't do any presentations because, again, I didn't know anything about it. I would just kind of run the show. But
you were the producing the.
That's it. I was the producer. Yeah. And I'd tell them, like, hey, how about you want to put on your resume that you are a guest speaker at a financial seminar? And they're like, hell yeah, I want to do that. I'm like, all right, man, here, just go and talk to these kids about, saving money or something for 20 minutes and hear a couple slides.
Right.
And that worked out. But eventually my family had bought a couple farms back home. And my dad's like, hey man, I'm gonna send you a load of a container of oranges or lemons. I don't recall. And I don't know anything about agriculture, man. And I don't know anything about agriculture to this day, nothing. But I'm like, all right, let's give this a shot. So I moved to LA and I brought in that container of lemons, I think, and just started going around knocking on doors and trying to sell it. And that was the beginning of my agriculture commodity career.
So you breezed through that like it was kind of real easy, like the container showed up at the port and you were like, all right, bring it over here and drop it in my yard or whatever. But the what is it, farm and ag, what's the organization you probably have to deal with here?
Yeah, the USDA and all that, but it's way easier than it sounds. Like if you want to bring a container of produce, you just got to go and get an import permit, which takes like 1 day. As long as you're
Really?
not like a criminal or something, they'll give it to you. Then you got to go find a customs broker and give them a power of attorney and I think a couple $100, and that's about it, man. And then your container arrives and it's like, hey, here's your container, what do you want me to do with it? And you just tell them, go drop it off at some location. It's really easy. And
Wow.
all the produce stuff has priority. So even with the mess that's going on right now with logistics around the world, like produce has an expiration date that's coming soon, so they give all that stuff priority, they move it quick. So it's not as yeah, it's not very complicated. I had no idea when I got into it. I'm like, this seems way too easy.
Did you get a crash course in logistics though when that day came, or did you have your shit together? Because
No, yeah.
you have to have a location, you've got to have, there's cartage and then distribution. You had all that stuff sorted out beforehand, or was that stuff you were kind of tripping through as you were figuring it out?
Nah, yeah, story of my life. I had no clue, man. I knew that there was a cold storage place that I'd spoken to on the phone. They're like, yeah, man, we'll take it here. We'll charge you X amount. I'm like, okay, go. We'll send it over there. And
So
then I'd ask her.
you didn't lose any like figuring things out. You didn't.
No, and I would ask them. I'm like, hey, man, I don't know nothing about this. Can you help me out? And they'd connect me with people and so on. But I also did the hustling and the grind. Like I'd go to I go to like a Mexican supermarket, these 2-3 store supermarkets, whatever, in LA, and I'd knock the door and I'd be like, hey man, I got some lemons to sell. And they're like, okay, man, what's your price? I'm like, I don't know. What can you pay me? Blah, blah, blah. And they're like, okay, show me a sample. I'm like, man, I got it's on a container. It'll be here in like 2 weeks. And they're like, the hell out of my office, man. You're wasting my time. So I'm like, okay, that's not the way to do that. So, but and like that, then I'd go. I remember I went to like a Jewish store and I bought a Star of David, and I put it on and opened my shirt. And then I went to like a Jewish supermarket and I'm like, hey, yeah, no. And they'd look at it, it's prominent right there. And they'd be like, oh yeah, no, yeah, of course we'll buy you some stuff from you, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, great. And then I'd take it off and I'd go to the Middle Eastern market and be like, hey, I want to sell you some produce. And that's kind of how I learned the ropes, man. Made a million mistakes. That probably cost a lot of money, but it was a fun experience. Yeah.
Right. And you've built your business up pretty good.
Yeah, no. So I'll finish that story and then I'll tell you how I got to where I am today. But and if this turns into like a business podcast, man, just shut me up.
No, it's fine. Now this is interesting. Like only a couple people have come on, and like I'm always trying to talk about the stuff outside of music and then come back to music. So
Yeah.
this is the stuff that I think is most interesting, and this is the stuff that I love to learn about. I love to hear people's stories, and this is as much as a big part of your story as music is. So I think it's great.
Cool. No, happy to share. So after that, I said, okay, so I kind of figured things out. I know what I'm doing. And I went ballsy. I said, so in LA, there's the place called the Produce Market, which works from like 2 a.m. to about noon, 6 days a week. It's overnight. That's where the restaurants and small supermarkets buy all their produce and then they haul it off and then they sell it in their stores or whatever. So I got ballsy, man, and I said, I'm gonna open a store over here. And in that place, it's mostly Mexican immigrants that are there, and they kind of run the show. And I'm like, okay, here I go. I'm Mr. Chilean. I speak the language. I've got an MBA. Whoa, I want to
You're
come in
still an
here.
outsider.
You know where this is going. So I'm like, cool, I'm gonna take over. Like, I'm gonna open my own place in here at the wholesale market, and I'm just gonna teach people how it's done because I got an MBA. So I opened shop, man, and these people, granted, most of them have never gone a day to school in their lives, man. No, nothing, no middle school, no nothing. And open up shop. Then within 6 months, I was out of business, completely bankrupt. Like, it was, but it was brutal, man. The level of stress, and again, working nights, 6 days a week, starting at 2 a.m. It was brutal, but it was probably the best lesson in humility that I ever received. And at the same time, that was the best MBA course that I ever took. Like, the street, like just learning how real business is done. And not to bang on MBA programs or UNLV or anything. I love UNLV, but in traditional MBA school, they teach you to go work for Bank of America, to go work for Microsoft, like what's right, what's wrong, and even all these extra courses that are on the sides to like teach you to do the right thing and morale and blah blah blah. Dude, when you're on the street in LA working at night, like, that doesn't exist. And it's, yeah.
Can you do you feel, or is there anything that are there any good stories? Like, can you share one or two?
Yeah,
I'm sure that
no.
you had some sketchy experiences. Like, I'm
I
sure that
mean,
uh someone was like, this fucking gringo is coming around here. He thinks he can like roll in here because he can speak Spanish and sell shit. And I mean, I would bet $20 with my dog right now that you had to deal with some stuff.
100%. So they'd look at me and be like, yeah, fucking gringo. And then I'd open my mouth, and then it was worse because Mexicans don't like Argentinians. I'm sure you've heard about all this stuff. Like, a lot of people in South America don't. And I love Argentinians, but I love everyone. And they'd be like, oh, this fucking Argentinian, man. And I'm like, for some reason, to them, Chilean Spanish sounds very Argentinian-ish, but it's really
Right.
not. It's quite different. But for them, because they're not familiar with either, they're like, oh wait, he's kind of blonde, he's tall, he's white, he's got to be Argentinian, yeah. And so they kind of disliked me a lot, but as they got to know me, we were all homies. Like, nobody did anything, nobody threatened me, nothing. And granted, it was like right on South Central and 7th Street, and that's a little bit sketchy at night. And I'd get there and I'd be like, hey man, they just jumped that dude over there in the corner, and like they just stabbed some guy. But I never felt threatened because I was always super friendly with everyone, and I didn't act like I was hot shit, even though in my head when I first started, I thought I was hot shit. I was smart enough not to like be an ass. But definitely stories like when I first opened up shop there, like the, I don't know, LA TV news station, whatever that was, had just done a special on the wholesale market where they showed a dude like peeing right in there next to all the produce, and that was my neighbor's store, and he was the coolest cat, man. He was so cool, and we'd hang out and stuff. But yeah, I'm like, hey, did you see me on camera? I'm like, what are you talking about? Did you see me on the news? I'm like, what are you doing? I was peeing, and they caught me peeing at night. God damn it. And yeah, so he got a little bit of heat for that. But you'd see rats running around, and it was pretty
Right.
disgusting, dude. Yeah.
So at the end of how many months? 6 months?
I was about 6 months in, 8 months, 8 months, something like that. But I was done, man.
And you were busted. You were broken. Uh-oh.
There we go.
You
We're
were
back.
6 months, you were busted.
I was busted. So busted. However, what happened is I had acquired a partner-ish eventually after about 6 months, when I was busted, and I'm like, what's my next move? So I partnered up with the guy that had like half a door. He would rent like half a door, and I had like a full door. And I'm like, hey, come over here, let's do this together. And the guy was like, okay, sounds good. So after that, we ran again for about 4 or 5 months. And at that point, I'm like, okay, this guy knows what he's doing. He's one of them. So I'm going to be a manager now. So I'd show up around 8 in the morning, I'd have breakfast there and just supervise and leave. And that's when we just tanked completely. After like another 3-4 months, we tanked and we made a deal where he would take over that business, and I was moving back to Vegas and I was starting over. So I closed shop and loved living in LA. The only sweat about LA is the traffic, and like you can't really go anywhere. LA has so many possibilities to go anywhere you want, but you can't because you're stuck in gridlock traffic. And that got to us, and we lived in West Hollywood for a year, which was awesome, and we lived in Pasadena for another year, which was great. But after a while, we started getting a little bit nostalgic about Vegas. So had nothing, grabbed my girl at the time, now my wife. We moved back to Vegas and started over completely. And that's when I said, man, I'm not gonna do any more anything in the US. I'm just gonna sell produce internationally. And that's when the thing started to work out. So I started becoming like a produce broker internationally, and shipping produce to Hong Kong and to like Singapore and like all these weird places. And
it's produce, citrus and produce that does your father produce it all, or
no,
is
so
it
yeah, after
grew
that
from
went
there?
south, my dad's like, man, what are you doing? You're a mess. And I'm like, no, screw it. He's like, you need to make this work. I'm like, I'm out. I'm going to Vegas. Screw you. So we didn't talk there for quite a long time. So I didn't do any more business with him and haven't since. So I went completely on my own. And it was strictly out of need to be able to pay, because I kept my little condo that I had here in Vegas, and I needed to pay that mortgage. And granted, it was a 1 bedroom condo, it was tiny, and back then everything was super cheap here, but
Still, money is money. Money out is money out.
100%. And I'm like, my goal was like, man, I got to make 50 grand a year so I could pay my car, pay my mortgage, feed my girl, and I go out to dinner maybe once a week or once a month or whatever, right?
Sure.
And just out of sheer need and desperation, I just, again, back to working nights and everything, just instead of at the market, just on the phone, on the computer. And I'd call growers and I'd be like, hey man, I have a customer in Hong Kong that needs some strawberries. And they'd be like, who the hell are you, man? We can't give you credit, because I had no money. So everything I had to buy was on credit. And they're like, who the hell are you, man? We don't know you. We can't give you credit. You're brand new. And I'm like, oh crap. So I'm like, okay, let me try something else. So I called like Egypt. Like I heard Googling that there was strawberries that people would export out of Egypt. And I'd call the company and be like, hey, yeah, I'm this big uh exporter of of berries from the US. So big company, man. We export all over the world, and we're looking to expand our supply base into Egypt, blah blah blah. And they're like, oh yeah, no, of course, yeah, that sounds really interesting, man. Of course, yeah, we'll sell you, we'll let you pay us at 30 days or whatever. And I'm like, okay, great, so let's do it.
So you set
And
up terms with Hong Kong for net 15.
yeah, that's exactly it. That's exactly it. And that's how I started doing the bicycle, that people call it the cash flow bicycle. And just kept repeating that. And people have told me, like in interviews, like business stuff, they've told me, man, you're such a visionary, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, dude, it was zero vision, zero. It was desperation, it was hunger, and it was, I'm not going to get to the end of the week, not allowed the end of the month, if I don't make a deal happen. So that was the beginning of that. And that kind of took off till today. And today the company does business across 65 different countries, and we ship like 30 different types of fruits from multiple countries, each of them. And the ship kind of runs itself now. Like I'm not too involved in it. I'll hit up a couple meetings a week, and that's about it. And today I'm way more focused on music stuff, but it wasn't easy. It was, I'd say, the first 4 or 5 years were brutal, just never knowing if it was going to work, if I needed to go back to the hotel world. One day I was looking at some old emails, and I found an email that I sent to my friends at the Aria at City Center, like 3 years into the business, man. And I sent him a email, and I didn't even remember this. And I saw it, and it was me asking if they had any jobs available, because I was sure I was going bankrupt again and I was going to have to go employ myself. And they're like, no, you know what, we're on a hiring freeze because the economy's not that good, blah blah. I'm like, oh crap, blessing in disguise, granted, blessing in disguise. So
Right.
yeah.
I mean, what if they're like, yeah, man, and it's pays 50 cents an hour more now? You would
Yeah,
your life would be a lot different right now.
completely different, man.
Or maybe not. Who knows? Maybe you'd have gone there and after 2 weeks been like, absolutely not.
Yeah, probably, probably, but it happened multiple times also where before all this business thing, I had tried to get a job over at Zappos, and all my friends worked at Zappos because it was like the hot place to work at in Vegas at the
Right.
time and so on. And they didn't hire me because I showed up wearing a tuxedo, not a tuxedo, like a tie, whatever I would work to the hotel at the Mirage where I worked. I'd show up wearing that to the interview, and they'd look at me like I answered everything right. They'd look at me and be like, no, he's a square, he doesn't fit in here because he's wearing a tie. And I'm like, they didn't tell me that. They told me that like 2-3 months later. My friends found out.
Right.
But I'm so glad that, dude, they didn't hire me, because maybe I'd be at Zappos and maybe I'd be happy. Hindsight is 2020. That
You probably would own Zappos by now. I'm saying. You don't strike me as the kind of guy who wants to hold a position somewhere.
Yeah. I don't know. I have trouble with authority. I have trouble following people. It's always been an issue. So yeah, it's actually always been an issue in my life. Every time I join the group of something, I end up leaving, and people hate my guts for not being one of the boys. But yeah, it's happened throughout my career and employment and everything. So yeah.
So your business started just you on a phone and sitting at your computer sending emails, like communicating that way. How
Yeah.
How many do you have is there an office now?
So we had an office here in Vegas during COVID, but we shut it down. Before COVID, we had our office. Then COVID hit, and we shut it down. And then once things calmed down a little bit, I asked the team. I said, "You guys want to go back to the office?" They're like, "You know what? We kind of like working from home." I'm like, "Man, happy to save the 6-7 grand I was paying for that office." Right. So yeah, let's all work from home. So now we all work from home. But granted, we're about 40-45 people in the company. I'd say maybe, yeah, there's maybe 5 in Vegas. There's maybe another 5 in between Cali and Florida. And then the other 35 people are spread out throughout 14 different countries. So yeah, I got people in like 14, 15 different countries. It's pretty cool.
That's crazy. And so these people act sort of like concierges to the entire process so that things flow smoothly. They can take care of paperwork there in person, or they have relationships with farmers, relationships with buyers, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's all of the above. So we have everything from salespeople to sourcing people to accounts payable, receivables, to the operations, and everybody's just spread out. We all work together. We use Zoom a ton, and we're on WhatsApp groups all day long, and it kind of works out, man.
Did you have any idea that it would grow into this when you started doing it?
No, not one bit. Not like I had goals.
You didn't even know the potential that was there, really.
Like I knew what I wouldn't even call them competitors when I started, because those were real businesses, man. When I started, it was just me sell something and pay for lunch. But I knew what they were doing, but I saw them as aliens. Like I'm like, one day if I get to that guy's level, man. And now we're like 5 times that. But it's been such a cool ride, but not an easy ride. I think the first 4 or 5 years, like I said, I could take some credit for it, but after the first 4 or 5 years, it's all my team, man. All I do is just I'm the pretty face. I'm the business. I'm not, but I'm just like the cheerleader in the background, trying to make sure they're all happy and they have what they need to be successful. But that's my role these days. They do everything. Yeah,
that's amazing.
Thanks.
How's the condo?
Yeah, I ended up selling it earlier this year. I actually sold it.
Oh, really? You finally sold it?
Yeah, I think I made $5 grand off this. I bought it at the peak of the market back in like 06.
Oh yeah.
There we go. I lost you there for a second. I bought it at the peak of the market, and then it tanked, and then slowly it recovered, and then I think I made $5,000 off of it. So hey, at least it didn't lose money. It was,
Success.
yeah.
Amazing. So okay. We met through our mutual friend Laura, who's a leather worker in Seattle. And how did you meet Laura?
Funny story. So I met Jeff Rouse first.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I was buying some stuff on eBay. I don't recall why. And he was selling the stuff. I don't recall what it was. Something music related, I'm sure. Yeah. And so I hit him up on a message. Hey, you got any more, or better price? I don't recall, but we started talking just through eBay Messenger. Then at some point he's like, no, hit me up. Here's my number, blah, blah, blah. And then we became friends on Facebook, whatever. Just started kind of developing a relationship with Jeff. And at some point I'm like, I wanted to get some custom guitar straps because I didn't like any of them. And I'm a huge fan of Chrome Hearts. You're probably familiar with the brand.
Sure.
I'm like obsessed. I'm probably their biggest customer in Vegas. So it's clinical, man. I need some help. But I wanted to
leather. You got him, buddy. Smoke him if you got him.
Yeah. No, I wonder sometimes. But I wanted a leather strap so bad, but I didn't want to spend $7,000, $6,000 on one. It's also, that was a while ago. So yeah, that was a lot, and it still is. That's a ton of money for a leather strap when you can buy a regular strap for $10 at the Guitar Center or whatever, right?
Sure.
So I'm like, I started asking people, and I think I asked Jeff. I'm like, hey Jeff, do you happen to know anybody that does custom leather straps? And he's like, let me hook you up with my friend Laura, right? And that's how I met Laura, and we just started talking and developed a friendship. It was I'd usually, back in the day when I was still more involved in the business, I'd stay up late at night having meetings with people around the world at night. And she also seemed to work a lot at night. So while working and so on, I'd start messaging each other and talking about leather straps. And then she'd also tell me a little bit about her world and her involvement in the music scene in Seattle and everything that comes with the territory. So it was fun. She was sharing all these stories while I was looking for some leather straps, and I ended up buying a bunch from her and a bunch of other stuff, and that's how we became friends. Yeah.
Wow. At what point did Velvet Chains form? Like because this is your baby, is the way I sort of see it as an outsider.
So the long version of the story is,
that's what we're here for. We're not here for the short story.
Let's do it. Hopefully it's interesting, maybe not. But for since I grabbed that bass again, I just started joining putting together bands more than joining bands, just kind of putting together bands. And first I started with people from school that played, and then I moved on to friends of friends, and then Craigslist, and I was in probably 7 or 8 different bands during that time, and just playing covers or garage band, rehearsing at home or whatever, but just mostly whenever we'd play a gig, it was just cover gigs. We do like grunge night, and then we just play all grunge and out 90s covers, and triple bill, 4 bills, whatever, at dive bars, and it was just a blast, man. We sounded terrible. It was just super fun, and that was the whole point of it. But at one point, after doing that enough, I'm like, okay, every time I get into a new band or I form a new band, it's for some reason after a while goes sideways. Again, that's part of me having a problem being in a group with people for some reason, and I'd just be like, no, you know what, I'm good. I'm gonna move on. I'm gonna start another one and another one until I find the right mix of people. Sure. And then one day in 2018, I went on Craigslist and I put an ad saying, saying, hey, why don't we start a band that influences our, let's go from like late 80s GNR into 90s. Let's do Pearl Jam stuff, Alice in Chains, Soundgarden. let's uh let's head to like Velvet Revolver, early 2000s, and Green Day, Linkin Park. So kind of mentioned those influences, Stone Temple Pilots too, and started getting a bunch of emails and replies and people that wanted to try out, and I started doing auditions. But just to take a step backwards, the whole point of me doing that was I learned about the Dead Daisies back then, and I'm like, man, this sounds brilliant to me. Granted, it's a little bit different. I'm no billionaire by any means or even close, which is what David Lowy, I'm sure you know the story of the Dead Daisies.
I only sort of like the bullet points.
Got it. So, billionaire dude, 57 years old, I believe. He decides he doesn't really want to do business anymore. And this is what my impression of it. I haven't had a conversation with the guy. I'm sure there's a better version of it. But so he's like, okay, I want to, travel the world and play gigs and have a band. So at 57, he just went out and I'm going to assume hired musicians, and he's got Glenn Hughes right now. He has Tommy Kufletos, I think, and
He started at 57.
yeah, he started at 57. I know I read somewhere that he was in bands, consistently growing up and so on, and he was in a few bands, but he started
Daisy started at 57. I didn't realize.
yeah, it was 57 or 56, something like that. And it's not your traditional age to start a project like that.
No,
I'm trying to
say
look.
But
Yeah, well,
that's great.
I'm also not 20, so I'm trying to, whatever I say is going to bite me in the ass eventually. But he did that, and I was super inspired by that, man. I'm like, okay, this guy obviously has way more resources than I ever will have, and he has his own jet plane, and they travel, and he pilots the plane himself. He's got a little bit of a Bruce Dickinson thing going on.
Listen, man, keep selling those strawberries. Don't sell yourself short. You got this.
But no, the only thing I got on him is that I started a little bit earlier, right? I started this a couple decades before he did. But with that said, that was a little bit of the plan, to do somewhat of a Dead Daisies inspired thing, but not necessarily at least not in the first iteration of Velvet Chains, to go out and pay musicians. It was more, let's put some together and let's split the proceeds and let's see what we can do. But the band itself started as mostly covers. We were just doing covers for fun, to get to know each other. Again, back to what we knew what to do, which is playing gigs around town and so on. And again, dive bars to start, and then we worked our way up and so on. But then COVID hit. And when COVID hit, we found ourselves sitting in a couch, everybody in their own home. We couldn't get together for rehearsal. We couldn't get together to let alone play gigs, right? So we're there and we're staring at the wall, and I'm drinking more than I should at the time, and just had nothing else to do. And I'm like, okay, either we start we get drunk or high or whatever the other guys do, but and stare at the wall, or we do that and write songs, rather than stare at the wall.
Sure.
And they were down, and I said, guys, I love you all to death, but this is where I think we need to go with the band, and let's start writing originals. But by then I already had about 5 demos that I had written with the help of a songwriter out of LA called Drew Lawrence, and he's worked with quite a good amount of quite the successful artists out there, multi-platinum awards, blah blah blah, whatever the term is. And I had written some stuff with him. He'd help me give them shape and add melodies using a MIDI keyboard and Logic and so on. And we had some good stuff that we had written. I showed it to Laura. She was like, wow, there's some good stuff there, stand on their own, blah blah blah. And I showed them to my band, and they're like, yeah, this is cool. So we started writing a little bit more. They wrote a few songs too. We all headed out to, and this is over a few months, right? Eventually, we all headed out to LA, met up with Drew again, and we gave some shape to those new songs. And we had some really basic demos for enough for a record. We had about 10 of them. And that's how Icarus, our first record, started to take shape. And at that point, we went into the studio here in Vegas. We went to the Hideout first. Great spot from the Churko family. And we recorded, we re-recorded the demos now with our instruments and singing and so on. And that's where we got to that point that we're like, my business brain kicked in and I'm like, hey, we need a couple collabs in here. Like, how are we going to make some noise? Like, who's going to care about another band that's coming out? There's 60,000 songs released every day on Spotify, something like that. Yeah, that's the statistic that I've heard a few times. 60,000 a day. It's like every second a new song is uploaded to Spotify. So I'm like, who's going to care about a record from some random band?
As a curious aside, have you refocused a lot of your previous like business mind into music business, like deep dive and research?
More of I've done research for sure, but it seems like everything has changed and continues to change so much,
Quickly,
like every
yeah.
year, that it's more of an inevitable automatic thing that I just kind of mix the musicianship with business. Like I just can't help it, right? And to a fault sometimes, where I'm like, man, this is probably taken away from creativity. But after doing all the record and everything, and I don't mean to say I'm right by any means, but I feel like the music part, the songs, the record, everything is probably 10% of the quest. And that's a ton of work, man. Like it's hours and hours and creativity and perfectioning things. And man, it was so much work. But then, okay, you got the product, but now what? How are you going to get it into people's ears? And it's like 90% like marketing and booking agent and ads and social media and the video and the lyric video and the live video. And it's, I've learned so much, and the photo shoot and blah, blah, blah. But marketing seems to be like the main thing. So it's been a blast, though. I've really,
Otherwise, you're a drop of water in the ocean.
That's it. And you may be
have to be a ripple at least in order to catch someone's eye. If you want to be a wave, you know.
That's the thing. Yeah.
You need a wave machine.
That's right. And not saying that I've figured this out by any means. We're definitely not a wave or a ripple quite yet, but it's I see the hustle that musicians have to put in, and I also see the opportunities where people can take advantage of them. People that have that business background but are not musicians that can do that. So it's been a ride. I'm loving it, man. It's been a lot of fun.
It is a grind, and I mean, I commend you. I think it's probably, is it hard? Let me ask you this. I think this is a good question. Do you think that this grind is harder than that grind you were going through when you started your business?
Yeah, but yeah, 100%. Yeah. But this is a personal perspective. I'm not saying this applies to everyone. My business is B2B. So I sell other businesses where it's not people that really care too much about how they spend the money because it's not their own money. They're working for somebody else at the company. So it's the company's money. So like, okay, that sounds good. Boom, let's do it. Buy it. Done. Sale is done. And you make one sale and you sold a container that's worth $50,000. Music is B2C. It's kind of like business to consumer, right? And now you got ego, you got emotions, you got personal experience, and
it's almost more like your very, very first LA business experience.
Totally, much more like that. And look,
Just
with
as
the
easy
work,
to go bankrupt too.
oh, dude. Yeah. I always say all the money that I make in my business, I spend in this. It's pretty crazy.
Hey, uh, you can't take it with you.
That's it. You just got to make it last until that day where you're no longer around, though. That's a challenge in itself.
Yeah, were you surprised at how much, or did you have an idea what was coming?
No, I didn't have a clue. I knew there was a business side to this, like everything, and I guess I'd figure it out. Not that I have figured it out by any means, but I'm like, okay, I'll just, I'll take this on like a new challenge, and it'll be fun. It'll keep me pushing. But yeah, I had no idea what was coming. I honestly thought that the musicianship side, the music side, was a lot more played a much bigger role. Maybe it does play a much bigger role when you've achieved a certain level of success, and now you got to maintain that success. I'm sure at that point you better produce real good stuff because people are already, you're on their radar. But to start, it's yeah, it's at least in my experience, it's been a lot less about the music. I don't want to discount anything from it though, but the grind and the business side is really where we're kind of like trying to figure it out.
I think I think that the average music consumer, they hear the stories a lot. I think they're more aware of how much work goes into creating, writing, recording, and you know producing, putting forth a product for people to get. Did you guys make physical product?
No, we haven't. And people ask us, hey, what about a vinyl or a CD, blah blah, and we're like, no, we're just doing the streaming thing, see if that catches on, and maybe potentially we'll do some physical product. We got a little merch and stuff, but that's about it.
Yeah, that was a big thing for me. I was really important to me. 5 years ago I started making a record, and I just that was a goal. I wanted to put out a record. I didn't care about playing shows or anything. And that record took a long time, but it came out a couple years ago. Uh,
That's awesome.
but it's a thing, like the, you don't really have to put out physical product anymore. It's also a pain in the ass to ship around and expensive to ship around. Shipping is getting more and more, I don't have to tell you, shipping is getting more and more expensive.
It definitely is, and I can relate to what you're saying about the need to put out a product. For me, and I know for the rest of the band, it was also important. It was kind of like to validate and like give us a little bit more authenticity, and to be able to get to a certain level by saying, hey, look, we've put out a product. We are a product. We're musicians. We're looking to do things, and without having just playing covers or some originals flying around on SoundCloud, it seemed like we weren't quite there yet. So no, I don't know if that was the reason for you. I'm sure everybody has their own personal reasons, but for us, it was super important to get that CD. We're so happy when that thing came out.
Did you guys go to Seattle to record, or did
Yeah.
you guys tracked with Greg?
So we did when we actually started recording the album, Greg flew down here with Laura, and we did drums at the Hideout here in Vegas. Then we did bass over at the Tone Factory, also here in Vegas. And then our singer and Lohan, our lead guitar player, they flew up to Seattle over to the Kill Room, and they did guitars and vocals over there. It was just them that went over there. Me and drummer Noel, we all stayed here. But yeah, no, they loved it. They said it was a nice studio.
Oh yeah, the Kill Room's great.
Yeah, yeah.
And how much time do you guys spend tracking?
It must have been a good maybe a month, about a month, maybe 2 months, something like that. Yeah.
Did you guys are there songs that didn't make the record?
There are a couple songs that didn't make the record that we are not sure we're going to put it on the next one. We've kind of started to write very, very, very basic ideas of songs and so on for the next one. But yeah, but mostly, yeah, we did 10. Yeah, I think we had 12 total. So 10. Yeah, it was about 10 that made it in the record. And if you listen to the songs on the record, it's quite the potpourri.
There's a variety. Yeah, there's some
Yeah.
songs that have like some poppy hooks in them
Yeah.
and like some up tempo, and then there's some like pretty heavy grungy type songs.
And it wasn't by design, but you know, I know other bands that have done that that are very versatile, like the Beastie Boys, right? Are they hip
Sure.
hop? Are they punk? Are they rock? Like, what are they? And I kind of wanted to do a little bit of that because I wanted to gauge what kind of resonated the best with the public, you know, what songs they would like the best. And also at the same time, it was a mix of all our influences, so I didn't want to have to be the band that just does one thing really well. I was like, let's try a bunch of different things and see what sticks, and let's have fun with it. So there's definitely songs that are, you know, there's one, Flexing is very Misfits ish. There's Strange Love, which is a little bit Journey-ish. You got, you know,
Right.
Wasted, which sounds like Alice in Chains could have done that, or the one you and Jeff collabed on is also quite grungy. And yeah, there's a mix of everything in there.
Kind of, I'm kind of partial to that one.
Yeah, no, I see why. You know, it's a great, especially the guitars are fantastic. Yeah.
Do you see? I mean, does it feel like the songs you guys are working on currently are taking a? Are you guys like? Is water finding its way? Is it? Are you finding that you are settling on one style, or do you think you'll maintain a wide variety of sort of genre representation in your music?
Yeah, that's a good question. We're actually having a lineup change coming up soon, and I haven't really announced anything, but we're making a couple changes to the lineup. So as soon as that's all said and done and confirmed, I'll make an announcement out there. But I've been writing some stuff that is taking me down a bit of a Radiohead rabbit hole for some reason. And not all, there's a couple songs in there that sound a lot Radiohead-ish, but
When you
always
say
through,
Radiohead, do you mean like the good, like you don't
no, the
mean
bad,
like
bad
Kid A?
yeah. No, uh
You
okay,
mean
computer maybe.
yes,
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
That
Paranoid Android, is that one of
oh
them?
that's
Yeah.
yeah, like the record before that, the Bends and OK Computer, those two records are the twin
Yeah.
towers of Radiohead. Kid A is the 911.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I could see that. I could see that. I love Radiohead's old stuff. That's what I listened to growing up in Chile, and they were so huge, and I just love all that. But I also don't want to take the band in that direction. It's mostly stuff that I've written that just feels like at the time I wanted to write that. But people have a little bit given us a description of hey, you guys sound a lot like Velvet Revolver and Stone Temple Pilots. And you know, I kind of like that.
Hey,
Honestly, includes two of my biggest bass influences in there, you know? So kind of dig that. And I kind of want to keep it there with a little bit deviations every now and then into whatever we're doing. Yeah.
uh yeah, you could hang your hat on a lot worse than those two bands.
Yeah.
Those bands were two of the greatest, modern rock bands ever.
Yeah, and you don't see a lot of other bands doing that. And you could argue, is is Neil stuck in the 90s and early 2000s, which is probably you have a point, or you could say, is there a little bit of nostalgia for that music in general, and people kind of want to hear a little bit of that come out again? I don't know what the answer is, but it's just it's honest music in the sense that it's what I really enjoy doing and listening to. So yeah, I'm happy doing that.
Well, I'm not even going to act like I know what kids are doing because I don't know what kids listen to. But I think that they're nostalgic for the 90s. They're dressing like they're nostalgic
Yeah.
for the 90s.
Yeah.
And they sure do, you know, Kurt Cobain is sort of is on every shirt in the way that John Lennon was on every shirt in the, when I was a kid. So, shit, I don't know. Yeah, I think that there's a 90s thing happening.
But I'm also realistic in the sense that, look, I kind of stopped listening to new music when I was like 30, probably 32. I think the statistic says that when you're about 32, you kind of stop in time and you don't listen to new stuff, or most people don't. So
Right.
I'm also realistic in the sense that, look, it's what the Daisies do, right? The Daisies are playing 70s, early 80s, late 70s rock, and when you go to their concerts, it's all people from that era, right? They probably don't expect anyone that's 18, 17 to listen to the Daisies. And for me, it's kind of the same thing. Look, if you guys think we sound like Velvet Revolver or Stone Temple Pilots and you dig that kind of music, then, and you grew up listening to that, then, give us a shot to see what we got. And yeah, definitely not expecting the younger kids to be fans. If they are fantastic, I'm not gonna say no, it'd be amazing, right? But just trying to be realistic about it.
Seems like you are probably at this point in your development as a business minded person, you must have a 5-year plan for music. Do you have an idea? I mean, do you have an idea of like going on tour, like doing anything like this? Do you have a plan?
So interestingly enough, and I've had this conversation with my wife, is I have about a what 35-year plan with this thing, because this is where I and it's not very detailed. I just kind of know the ending of it, right? The panacea,
Tombstone.
yeah, the nirvana of the whole thing, and nirvana as the term, not the band. um I It's kind of inspired by David Lowie from the Daisies again. Like, I see myself traveling, if I'm still doing business, during the day, but as soon as 5 p.m. hits or whatever, or it's time to go play a gig, just traveling the world, and having a lineup with me that makes sense at the time, and that we're playing gigs and having fun and traveling the world, and seeing the world. And that's kind of like my long term. If this guy started at 56, 57, he's 65 now or something like that, and it's working out, why not? As far as a 5-year plan, trying to um, finalize the new lineup, start working on a record again. And I did speak to our booking agent about booking festivals more than a tour. I'd love to play, and this is me trying a new strategy that most bands don't do. So I'm probably wrong, like most of the things that I do, and
From
I
a
fix
business
it, right?
standpoint, trying to get on festivals, however you can do it, is pretty smart because you're getting in front of the most amount of people, and and time is money, right? So you're going to want to spend your money like transportation to a festival is expensive, hotels, all that stuff. Sure, that's expensive, but is it more expensive than driving a van or an RV or something across the country and playing in front of like small audiences that you have a hard time reaching? Maybe they don't even, maybe they'll never hear you. Maybe you you go to wherever you play in New York for 5 people. Like that's a city of millions of motherfuckers. And it's hard to get people to come out and see if they don't know. But if you're at a festival, I think that's smart.
That's kind of what thank you, man. I appreciate that. That's kind of what I've asked him to do. See if he can focus on festivals for that same reason. And I've said, dude, I don't care if I told him get us Bottle Rock next year. I don't care what you do, get us Bottle Rock. But again, I don't care, bro, if you get us Bottle Rock at 10 a.m. before even the gates
Is that
open,
a
and we
country festival?
Bottle Rock is at Napa, is where GNR just
Oh,
played over there.
yeah,
We went
yeah,
to
yeah.
check them out. Yeah. I'm like, I don't care if it's at 10 a.m. before the doors open and we're just playing for the people setting up the booths, man. Whatever. I don't care. Like, just get us in there and let's build a resume, you know, and then let's go the year after that, be like, hey, this band played at Bottle Rock, you know, we don't need to specify that we were the opening slot at 10 in the morning, you know, when there was nobody there. I don't care. For me, it's all about a process, man. It's like it's baby steps, and it's achieving small wins in battles, and eventually you get to the throne or whatever.
An experience. I mean,
It's an experience. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
it's decidedly different. I mean, I'm sure that there were plenty of fulfilling victories along the way where you felt like a champ in your other business, but the victories that you achieve in creative endeavors feel much more fulfilling, right? Because they're not necessarily, they're not about like earnings.
I love it. I love what you're saying in the comparison. And I tell you that I don't know if it's because I have a little bit more business experience now and I can apply it to this, but I don't feel like I've had any failures whatsoever and I've had plenty, but they don't feel like failures in music. And it's almost like winning or whatever, hashtag winning, whatever the term is,
Right.
In music is happening like consistently. Like today, man, like being a guest on your podcast, man, that's a massive win, dude. And I can't thank you enough for that. And that's I lose you there for a second. There we go.
We got a little jiggly.
Yeah, what I was saying is like even like today being at your podcast, that's a win, dude. And I can't thank you enough for it, man. It's amazing. And all these little things, like a collab that we got from you and Jeff, the collab from Richard Fortus, like it's like reaching new heights every time. And things that, you know, somebody may look at it and be like, oh, what, you got a collab, whatever, dude. Whatever, man. For me, that's an amazing thing. And I'm so happy putting out the record, you know.
Let me just say for the record, I heard Richard Fortus's guitar solo on your song, and I was like, fuck, that's so fucking good. And he's probably didn't, he just like, he could play, you know, he's such an incredible guitarist, like one of the best.
Yeah, no,
This
when
fucking guy. And then I was like, I can't, when you asked me to play a solo on the record, I was like, I can't fucking mail the, like I gotta really do this. So I was of course playing at the absolute limits of my abilities. And he, like, you know, there was probably 50 takes to where I had to make it sound like I was trading solos with myself.
I could see that. I could hear that.
God,
Yeah.
motherfucker.
No, but
so good.
You're I mean, don't discount anything from yourself, man. It's with you, with Richard, and with Jeff, it was the exact same thing. You guys sent in your stuff, and I remember because Richard did his first, and he sends it in and he says, hey, you know, let me know if you got any revisions. Here's, you know, my first draft at it, and or whatever exact words he used, I don't recall, but it was kind of like, man, just let me know what you want to change. We'll change it as many times as you need so that it works for you guys. You know, and I'm thinking like, okay, you know, let's give this a shot, whatever. And I'm sure we'll have a few revisions. We'll have to listen to it as a band and take notes and all that. And I listened to it and I'm like, holy fuck, man. Like, oh my God. Like, was he joking when he said that? Like, this thing is incredible, man. He's a virtuoso. And I'm like, okay, maybe it's just me because, you know, I'm a bass player. What do I know, right? And so the rest of the band listens to it and they have the same reaction. They're like, fuck, they just took our record to a next level, man. Like, and Lohan, my guitar player, has said like, oh man, I wish I had a chance to redo all these solos because after hearing that, and what you and Jeff did was the same. You guys also said, hey, you know what, any changes you need, blah blah blah. And now after having heard Richard say that and what he said, now I'm like, okay, this is like somebody's just say, because this thing's gonna be amazing. They're just trying to be humble, right? Just trying to sound cool. And we heard your
I don't think so.
Yeah, maybe, like, I don't know, man. If we were some huge virtuoso group of musicians, maybe you would be like, oh, Richard, can you do that slide a little bit different? Or I don't know, I'm making something up, right? But honestly, for me, it was mind blowing. And Same with you and what you and Jeff sent in. Same thing. Hey, any changes, let us know. And we listen to it. This works perfectly, man. It's fantastic. And it's so distinctly different. Like the style. It's really
Wait a
interesting
minute.
to me.
Jeff went to the studio though, didn't he?
Jeff went to Laura's house, at Laura's condo, and they recorded it there with Greg.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's so distinctively different, like what you did versus what Richard did. It's such a different style.
Because I'm not as good as Richard.
Yeah, that's definitely not the case.
No one is. No, it's definitely the case. It's nice of you to say, though. That guy is in a class of his own. I think he's a better guitar player than Slash.
I've always said that
different. He's a different guitar. He's a technically more proficient guitar player than Slash.
I may have said what you just said sometimes, but I'm not going to say it on air. But no, I see exactly what you're saying. So for me, the logic behind it is, okay, the Guns N' Roses guys started this band. They got huge, amazing. They're amazing. And anybody would love to play with Guns N' Roses. But now if you want to join Guns N' Roses, you got to be the cream of the crop, right? They're not going to just choose somebody. Probably going to choose somebody that's better technically than the original musicians are, because they can do it.
Right. You also have to have someone that can execute some of that like weird, very technical Chinese democracy era stuff.
Yeah.
And he can.
Yeah. No, and Richard's such a cool cat, man. And we just we went to a hockey game here recently, and we were the artists of the match, and they played Tattooed Velvet Chains, and
nice.
On the Jumbotron they showed us. We were all there, and then they put on the Jumbotron, they put Tattooed featuring Richard Fortus. So I took a picture, I sent it over, and he's like, I emailed it to him, and he's like, oh yeah, man, my friend is at the game and he just sent me the same picture. I'm like, oh, that's so awesome. And we were playing the St. Louis Blues, so that's got to be his team. So
I'll bet, huh?
Yeah. Hey, I gotta say thank you for that collab, dude, because that was thanks to you. I don't know if your listeners, if you've mentioned that, I don't think we've mentioned that, but that was thanks to you. You helped us with that, man, and super appreciative for that, man.
Whatever, anytime. I say to most anyone that gains my trust, and anyone that's been on the show is like, if you want an introduction to someone else on the show to whatever, collaborate, or the thing is musicians want to play, they want to work. It doesn't matter if you are in a band that is playing open mic in your small town in Missouri, or if you're in Guns N' Roses. Like, if you're not working, you want to be working. If you're not playing, you want to be playing, So and also that's how I've gotten a number of the guests in my videos. It's like, if you don't ask, I've discovered people aren't going to come kick your fucking door down begging to be a part of what you're doing.
And that's such a business principle at the end of the day, right? You gotta go and hustle, man. And yeah, that's usually how it works.
Yeah. Some people, I don't know, some people are lucky and people flock to them, I don't know what that element of charisma is that makes people, they have some sort of, fucking Christ thing going on. I don't. I'm out begging people to get me there. Come on, man, please. But that's how you got to do it. And so, yeah, of course, and you're cool. So of course I would introduce you guys.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thank you. No, and you have such a resume too that anybody would be lucky to be in one of your videos or be on this interview, man. I'm sure there's a bunch of people that know who you are, or at least if they Google your name, it's like, wow, dude, wow. So
I don't know if that's true or not. I am trying to fix my website because it's pretty janky. And I looked and I just like scrolled through how many videos I've done, and it's a shitload. It's a lot.
You're about to hit 200 interviews, right? Something like that.
I am. I'm going to announce a fun guitar pedal collaboration to celebrate the 200th episode
Nice.
too.
Yeah.
100 was a guitar, this thing,
Yeah.
and 200 is a pedal. So that's pretty exciting.
Awesome. Very
Yeah.
cool. Very cool.
When will you be in New York?
We don't have any plans to head out there. I've my booking agent booked something out there. We'll definitely be going, hopefully next year, but no plans at this time. Are you ever gonna? I mean, you go to Seattle every now and then. I've seen on your social media, but any Vegas plans? Can we host you? Can we invite you to come visit us, man?
I don't know. Sure, why not?
I mean, Laura comes here every now and then too, so we can fly her out and make it a family affair.
Maybe when we hang up, I'll talk to Christine.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
she's always looking for a fun excuse to get out of town.
Yeah, no, and there's so much to do in Vegas, and it's crazy right now in Vegas. The amount of people, it's completely out of control. How this city bounced back, and everything from shows to tourists and everything. It's just crazy. You can't get a reservation for dinner anywhere unless you book it a week in advance. It's insane, but it's a lot of fun.
I have a good friend who lives there, and he enjoys to go see shows and go out and do some stuff. And he's like, "Yeah, it's back." You know what else is back? Nashville. Nashville. I don't think COVID ever hit Nashville. I don't think they know what it is. I don't think they heard about it.
Was Slash Mouse Kennedy and the Conspirators doing their record in Nashville during that time? I think.
Oh, they did make their record there. Yeah.
Yeah. And thanks for the intro to Todd Kearns. We've hung out there and hung out, and I think I'm going for his birthday party or something, so it'll be fun.
Oh, killer.
Yeah.
Nice.
How do you live in Albany? You're near Albany, right? You said, right?
Yeah, we're like 30 minutes south of Albany in Hudson, like between like 10 minutes north of Hudson in a little town called Stuyvesant.
How do you deal with the snow, man? And I meant to ask you that question when we were talking about Plattsburgh, because after 2 years of that, I'm like, I'm
Right.
never doing that again.
Right. Well, I'm not a fan of snow or really being cold. I don't really enjoy to be cold. So I've got gear. I've got winter gear. That helps. I have a 4-wheel drive truck. That helps. And the thing is like Seattle winters are long and just dark. And I heard people talk about this a lot. But winters here aren't as long as Seattle winters. It's cold as hell, but on the coldest day, the sun will be shining, and it makes a lot of fucking difference, man. And when it's in the winter, I am strangely more focused on positive. Like it seems like an adversity. Like winter is adverse to me. So I kind of always have viewed it as an enemy. I'm not a fan of fucking winter sports. Fuck skiing. Fuck snowboarding. Fuck inner tubing. Fuck polar bear plunges. Fuck being cold. Okay. And so strangely, like in the winters when I'm like, okay, it's time to work out again. It's time to like get myself in shape. It's time to focus on there's always something to focus on again. So the long answer is it motivates me. Adversity motivates me.
That's a great characteristic to have, man.
The easy road never motivates me. Unfortunately, I think that's part of my downfall. When things start to work, the adversity floats to the top somehow. That's something I gotta sort out.
That's interesting. That's a great quality though. Like most people shy away from adversity, but no, yeah, if you take it to the next level where things work out and now suddenly it becomes adverse again, that's interesting. But man, I'd rather have that quality than not, for sure.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm Maybe I'm addicted to suffering. Who knows? Who knows? What do I know? I'm not a head shrinker.
But that's funny. I'm the same way with the cold. I just can't tolerate the cold. And I grew up skiing, and I'm a pretty decent skier. And since I remember, I've skied, and I absolutely fucking hate it. Like it's the same thing with the violin. You know, I used to be a decent violin player. I don't know if I can grab that and play again, but I just don't enjoy it. It's yeah. So thanks.
How do you deal with 125-degree heat?
But you're not outside during those, and granted that sometimes it's like 130, man, and it's you can feel like the atmospheric pressure like changing, and it's brutal. There's those 4 or 5 days a year that are absolutely brutal, even if you're inside. But
I lived in Barstow for a couple years,
oh yeah, okay,
and it's very much similar.
yeah. But here there's so much stuff to do indoors that you
Right.
don't need to go outside unless you're some outdoorsy type. But yeah, it's yeah, the whole thing. People say the dry heat, and you got air conditioning and so on. But if this place was humid, for a minute a few
So
years ago,
livable.
yeah, I wanted to move to Puerto Rico when I was very much focused in business for the tax situation where I would have ended up paying like 4% taxes a year, like 4%, like no joke. Puerto Rico has this thing for companies to move over there. But and I love Puerto Rico. It like I went there and I'm like, man, this is like being back home in Chile with the American system for everything. Everything seems to work. I'm sure if you ask a Puerto Rican, nothing works there. It's what I hear, but I loved it. And then like the next day, like summer hit or something. It was like the humidity and the heat and the mosquitoes. And I'm like, nope, I'll be happy paying a shitload of taxes. I'm moving back to Vegas. There's no mosquitoes over there.
Yeah, no, it's gnarly, dude.
Yeah.
Humidity is the worst, and it's gets humid here.
Yeah. I remember the summers in Plattsburgh were hot and humid.
But the
During
fall is
those months.
beautiful.
Sure. No, it's beautiful. Yeah. It's the Adirondacks and all that stuff. I love the scenery, but it's too cold, man. Ooh, yeah.
uh, do you guys? So we're gonna start wrapping up. You guys, your record is available through all digital platforms.
That's correct. Yeah, we're on everything: Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, you name it, we're on it. We have a YouTube Vivo channel also for the music video that we did. It's directed by Dean Carr. That was a blast to do. Work with him.
Rad.
And social media, we're at Velvet Chains Band on Instagram. And we're on Facebook too, and I think we're even on TikTok. I'm not sure that account as much, but yeah.
I don't pay much attention to my TikTok. I should. I keep hearing that that's what the kids care about, but I don't think kids care about 50-year-old bearded fucking chunkers. Um, unless that 50-year-old bearded chunker is Santa Claus, which I am
Right.
not. Soon. Um, do you guys have any shows coming up that you want to plug?
We what are we doing? We got a show at all right, so we're doing this thing. It's really a cover thing, but it's been a lot of fun. We've been doing this Battle of the Bands thing over at the Cosmo Hotel, at the barber shop. It's kind of cool. They have a lot of big bands and musicians playing there quite often, and so we made it to the final. So November 8th we'll be at the barber shop. That's a Monday, and the final of that. And we're up
Amazing.
against some what's that?
Amazing.
Yeah, and we're up against some really, really, really solid bands. That's all covers though, and we're doing a tribute to Scott Weiland on this Friday here in Vegas. A show that we're really going to do originals. We have something booked for December 18th at the Tuscany Hotel Casino here in town. We're also doing some stuff in April, March, so we're booking that. But yeah, our focus is going to be festivals next year, and that's what we're trying to do.
Will you do me a favor? Will you email that those show dates to me
Yeah, 100%.
so that I can plug them at the very top of the podcast during the intro?
Sure. Yeah. Great.
So
Thank you.
this will come out a week from this Monday, so in a week and a half.
Awesome.
So just in time for the November, so we won't miss anything.
Yeah, yeah. I'll leave the other one we're doing this Friday out. I'll just send you the ones that.
Awesome. And I think that I saw a couple of solo photographs of you on your website when I was poking around on there. Could you
Yeah,
send me a couple of high res shots, or can
sure.
I grab them off there? Are they downloadable?
Yeah, I'll send you the links to the Dropbox and all
Awesome.
that fun stuff. Yeah,
Thanks, man.
yeah, my pleasure.
Uh, this is the longest conversation we've had. I really enjoyed talking with you, and I think uh your tenacity in business is impressive and inspiring. And I hope that I hope it transfers over and you see the same kind of success in music.
Yeah, thanks. For me, I appreciate that. For me, success is already what we're doing now. And if it amounts to not much more, I'm super happy, man. And if it amounts to a lot, I'm just as happy. So it's what it's about. And yeah, it's the longest we've chatted. And I know we've had a few phone calls, but I've heard you in podcasts where you've been interviewed, and your life story, man, is super cool and interesting. And I hope to spend a little bit more time with you too, just getting to learn more about you, man.
I don't know how cool it is, but it definitely is not like most other people's.
Yeah, exactly. And that's pretty cool in my book.
Yeah, it's it. I had just had my uncle, one of my uncles, visiting here from Washington. It was awesome to have him visiting. Um, but it's every time we hang out, I hear insane stories about my father and about my family. It's just like, whoa,
Wow.
you've got to be kidding me.
Wow.
So I don't know. I guess the way I see it is that find something that inspires you, uh, and forget about the negative shit that is around you, and just keep your horse blinders on.
But isn't it true that most interesting people have had some horrible shit happen to them, or some crazy adversity in their lives, right? Um, it seems to be that way, at least. And there's amazing people out there that are kind and nice, that have lived a simple life, even though everybody's fighting their own challenges and have their own demons. But it seems to be that the people with the most adversity and that have overcome it end up being super interesting people to learn and talk to.
I mean, a lot of my favorite people and favorite stories they come from people who have overcome challenges. But I mean, look, I don't have I've I grew up super poor in a family that was, you know, broken down and constantly in a household that was constantly disrupted by police activity.
Oh.
And so there's that. It's fun, but I'm a white guy, like I never had to deal with any. I've never been a woman. I've never been a person of color. I've never had to deal with any of those sorts of things. As the way I see it, I've had it pretty easy, because if I had those things to overcome, my story could have been a lot different, you know.
I could see that, but yeah, I wouldn't discount anything you already.
No, I'm not discounting. I'm just not giving myself. I'm not one to give myself more credit than I'm due.
Gotcha.
Like I don't think I'm like not any more special than we're all special.
Yeah, I can't wait to learn more about you, though.
You'll get a participation trophy.
I'm like that. I'm the same way, man. Yeah.
Nils, we're gonna get you in a Couchress video. That's what we're gonna do.
In a what?
We're gonna get you in a Couchress video.
Oh yeah.
What do you think about that? You got the studio.
The only reason I want to do that is because of the T-shirt, man. I just love
it's a
that.
pretty good shirt.
Yeah, that's the only reason. No,
years,
I'd love to, man.
For 3 years, I've been mailing those fucking things out to people.
Yeah, I told you, if you don't send me one, I'm gonna bootleg one, man. I don't care, dude. They're awesome.
No. We're gonna get you in a video. We'll get you in a video. It'll be great.
Beautiful. I love it. Thank you, man. Thank you so much.
Well, listen, I had a great time talking. Thank you for giving me so much time.
No, thank you.
I'll
Thank you.
plug the shows at the intro, and I'll see you in the funny papers.
Awesome. And we'll see you in Vegas soon, hopefully. So talk to your girl and let's make it happen.
All right, I'm gonna kill the recording.